where the wild winds run, where the skies stretch wide and kiss the sun. The sagebrush whispers, the rivers hum. This land's a story just begun. Wyoming calls, where the heart beats free. Mountains rise and dreams run deep. Past the borders, past the sign, there's a world alive beyond the fence line. Boots hit gravel and the prairie sings with every hoofbeat. The frontier rings from ranchers' hands to miners' veins. The spirit of the West remains. Wyoming calls, where the heart beats free. Mountains rise and dreams run deep. Past the borders, past the sign, there's a world alive beyond the fence line. So come ride with me through the dust and time. Find the soul of Wyoming beyond the fence line, beyond the fence beyond the fence line, where the wild winds run, where the skies stretch wide and kiss the sun.
Hey, good morning, Wyoming. Happy Thursday, January 8th. Man, don't you guys feel like it's a constant, just breakneck cycle, right? With headlines, big news, stuff going on all the time. Man, crazy. So, I am Joseph Kibler, your write-in candidate for Wyoming governor. Great to have you all here today. I'm your host. And what are we doing here on Wyoming Beyond the Fence Line? You know what? We're going outside the echo chambers. We're going beyond the fence line. We're looking for facts because facts matter. We're looking for the truth beyond the headlines that we get fed all day, every day. In fact, yesterday I felt like I was following headlines way too much. There's just so much going on, and it's so tempted to just be constantly glued, right, to this thing and like, oh, what's next? What's going on? And of course, we know some big news in Wyoming. I guess big-ish news, kind of. We've got a new contender for the single House seat. The U.S. House of Representatives, Reed Reisner, has decided to throw his hat in the ring there. There are rumors that our current governor will be throwing his hat in the ring to something. We don't know. We don't know yet. We don't have anybody's hat in the ring yet for upcoming Secretary of State or anything like that. So things are starting to heat up in some of the different races that'll be coming this midterm election year. And I'm here today. We're going to talk about it. This show is called We've Got the Power. And we're going to talk about power policy, energy policy here in Wyoming and where I stand on that. You guys, I get so many questions all the time, and I answer these in the comments on Facebook and X and things like this, and try to give as concise of an answer in social media, but it's so much easier to give an answer when we're here, when we're like this, and we can talk about the different things, the different issues that Wyoming cares about. Energy, so important for Wyoming, you guys. It's 20 to 25% of our GDP here in this state. And so a very critical component of really the economy, the success of all of us here in this state for both our companies and our people. And so very, very important. We're the largest coal producing state in the U.S. with at least a third of all of the U.S.'s coal reserves. We know that we are an oil and a gas powerhouse, and most of our energy is coming from fossil fuels, right, you guys? I'm going to talk today about coal. We're going to talk about natural gas and oil. We're going to talk about wind and solar. Yes, we are. We're going to talk about wind and solar and where I stand on renewable energy. We're going to talk about nuclear today. And we're going to dig into some of the facts of the changes in the energy industry in the last couple of decades that have kind of brought us to where we are today when it comes from an energy production standpoint. So today should be fun. It should be interesting. And I hope you guys enjoy it as we talk about Wyoming energy and what my policy or where my policies would land when it comes to Wyoming energy being one of the most important things in our economics here in this state. So I want to start out by showing you guys a real quick graph because I think this is a really important part of the discussion when we talk about energy here in Wyoming. So I'm going to go ahead and share this graph, and what I'm going to do is let's see what we do here. I'm going to go ahead and stick myself down here over in the side so we can look at energy just from a factual and a practical standpoint. Let's start out by saying, we talk a lot about, the death of the coal industry, right? We talk a lot about, bureaucracy has killed coal and environmentalism has killed coal. And while there are some aspects to that which are absolutely true, advances in technology have also played a significant part in what the future outlook looks like for coal. And obviously, coal is so important to our state and has been for a very, very long time. But sometimes we need to zoom out, and that's why I've got this graph up to kind of take a look at, well, where are we at from a practical standpoint, from a logical standpoint, even an objective standpoint, when it comes to coal energy. First of all, 125 years ago, we used to use coal for all sorts of things. Housing, right? Locomotives for railroads, right? We used to use it for so many other things 125 years ago. And today, the primary use for coal is one singular use, which is power generation. Now, that being said, and I'll show you guys this a little bit later in the show, just 2 days ago, there was a great article that came out in the Cowboy State Daily talking about Wyoming. We're building the nation's largest coal products facility. So I'll talk about that a little later. This might be an opportunity for the future of coal. But now let's take a look at this graph that I've got here, guys. So this graph just goes back a couple of decades to 2001, and you look at that blue line, that natural gas line, when it comes to energy or electricity production. And yes, bureaucracy and environmental considerations have had an impact on coal, but we found technology as it advances, right? Hey, just like in my business's industry, AI has really done a number on my personal business, our industry of web development and marketing. In a post-COVID world and AI being launched, you might call our company kind of a coal situation in a way, and so maybe we would call natural gas AI, right? And it's had an effect on my business and on my industry. So if you look at this graph, you'll see natural gas energy production significantly starts going up starting around 2003, 2004, and you'll start to see those pretty significant drops in coal energy production going the other way. And of course, you can note in this graph that natural gas energy production, because it was more efficient, cheaper, and arguably better for the environment in many, many, many ways, you see this natural gas production going up this way. And you see coal going basically in sync, going down the opposite way. And then, of course, we see that red line of renewables, which is also maybe taken a little bite out of coal. And so we have a bunch of mitigating factors that have really affected our great Wyoming coal industry. And some might say, and there are those that argue in energy, that coal is going to be dead when it comes to electricity generation. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't see the future. But when we look at a graph like this, it maybe does give us a little picture of where we might be headed. Again, technology replacing other technology. And that kind of, to me, is a little bit more of the bottom line. And yes, bureaucracy has played a part. And yes, environmentalism has played a part. But when you look at this, we found some new technology, or we started using some new technology, and that technology has advanced in the opposite direction, and coal has gone down. So, what is my stand on coal? You know what? I know we're talking about closing several coal plants here in the next decade or so here in Wyoming. Are we going to build more? Do we have a second, third, fourth, fifth generation of coal, that power generation, that we could potentially take a look at? I'm open-minded on that, when it comes to coal power. I wanted to share another thing here with you real quick. I'm going to share this article from the Cowboy State Daily, which I think is an interesting part of the conversation when it comes to coal. And that is that Wyoming is building the nation's largest coal products facility near Gillette. I think that this is an interesting part of the future for coal. And now this isn't necessarily energy related, but it is resource related into Wyoming. Where we could talk about many different uses for our great Wyoming coal beyond just energy, perhaps, talking about, roads and things like this, and other things that coal could be used for, even in nuclear processes that coal could be used for. So there is an opportunity for the future of coal in energy in some way, shape, or form. What that looks like, I think time will definitely tell, for sure. I think, in my opinion. I'm gonna go back to that graph one more time, so we kind of take a look at that as we delve into some of what we're going to talk about today. So, policy on energy. I started out the show. Wyoming actually produces right now roughly 12 times more energy than we use. So we could be a great exporter of energy if we do it right. It can be a great benefit to the state and to the people of this state. We have 25,000 plus miles of energy pipelines in our state. The infrastructure that we have to bring different forms of energy around the state. In particular, a lot of that is obviously natural gas and oil. So we've got a lot of really great things going for Wyoming when it comes to energy and energy production. This is an area, I've always said when it comes to the Wyoming economy, why don't we focus on what we're good at? And I realize a lot of times that can be, well, Joseph, that can be boom or bust, right? Like that could be one of two things. And I understand that. But with the increase of production and output, especially when it comes to energy, and in particular, I'm going to talk about electricity. Let's face it, America's demands, the world's demands for electricity are not going down. So, Wyoming, let's produce electricity. Let's focus on this industry. Let's focus on expanding our natural gas energy production. Let's focus on expanding coal production if we can do it, if it makes sense. Now, I realize carbon sequestration and carbon credits and carbon issues have created a lot of issues for the progress in the coal industry. The Trump administration is loosening a lot of that up. So hopefully we'll be able to look at that from a new lens and see what we can do to increase coal energy production. I'm excited about that article I shared earlier. Hey, we're building the largest coal products facility in the US right now in Wyoming that takes in 10 tons of coal a day. I know that's not a lot in the scheme of things, on different ideas for coal products. I think that's fabulous, and I think coal products are going to be a great future for Wyoming. So let's expand Wyoming energy industry. This is one area where Wyoming, if we're good at it already and we can win. My policy would be very, very energy growth friendly. Now, your next question for me is obviously, well, Joseph, what types of energies are you going to support? Which types of energies are you going to be, putting to the side? And I want to say something here that's a little bit more principled, if you will. Again, zooming out. I do not like the fact that taxpayers, Wyoming taxpayers, citizens of Wyoming, the United States, we don't realize it as much as we might or probably should. We subsidize everything. Okay, almost all industries in the United States, for that matter, and in Wyoming, are subsidized by taxpayers. We have got to find a path out of that mess. We have got to work on that with our energy producers, with our resource producers, to where taxpayers are not under the hood subsidizing so much of this. Because it's getting to a point where, guess what? We, the taxpayers, we can't afford it anymore. So I'm going to talk about a whole bunch of types of energy. Coal, energy, or electricity production. I think we continue and see where that goes. I believe we've got some plants that we're going to close this year, and the federal government has asked that those not be closed, and there's some things going on there behind the scenes. So let's see what happens with coal when it comes to energy production. We may see, much like my own business has had to do because of technology and changes in our globe and in our economics, like my company has had to shift its focus. Maybe coal ends up shifting its focus to coal products. That would be interesting to look at in the future. That's what I think about coal. Natural gas. I think this is still a great opportunity for Wyoming. I think we've got a lot of room to grow in the area of electricity and natural gas production. And if you look at this graph that I've got up, I'm leaving that up on purpose so that you guys can see kind of where we're at from an electricity generation standpoint in the United States. And we can see, a lot of opportunity in natural gas for Wyoming. In fact, I was talking to my father-in-law because he was talking about, the grid, and he works at a data center, and we were talking about energy, and he was asking me, like, Joseph, what about energy? Like the grid, we're taking so much off the grid. And I said, I think it'd be really great if we could get some of these data centers to just have, natural gas, power production, maybe even on site if we have the infrastructure for it. And he looked at me and he was like, well, wait a minute. All of our generators at the data center are natural gas. So why aren't we just using natural gas power generation on site for our data center? I said, well, that's a really great question. You could use the grid as your backup and run off of natural gas, and that would relieve a lot of strain on the grid. And it would, maybe that would potentially help lower costs for consumers, because we know data centers are not lowering energy costs for consumers. So we had that discussion. So I think natural gas is a great thing for Wyoming's energy and electricity future, to increase our GDP in this state. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about, I'll talk about renewables next, wind and solar. So I have always been a fan of the idea of renewables. Okay, I think most of us are. I think most of us, if we're just sort of logical and objective about it, we can be fans of renewable energy, because after all, it's renewable, right? The renewable energy production sector has not been encouraged to advance in technology or grow in its approach to things, whether it's environmentally or as far as the landscape goes, things like this. And part of the reason for that is taxpayers have been subsidizing it for decades. Okay, so hey, we're getting all of the money we need from taxpayers through subsidies. Why would we need to advance the industry, right? I mean, why would we be encouraged to advance the industry when, shoot, we keep flying off the back of taxpayers? So there's a couple issues that I have with current renewable energy in general. One, massive subsidies, low tax rates, and basically it's a sweetheart deal to exist, right? My opinion, if something cannot exist without my wallet, the money that I go to work for every single day for decade after decade after decade, we need to let the free market decide what happens to it. I mean, that's what happens on Main Street. That's what happens on Main Street. The market decides whether I stay in business or not the government. Okay, the free market decides that. The problem is the government has decided that we are going to fund these. We're going to subsidize these endless, green energy initiatives that wouldn't make sense on Main Street. And to me, if it doesn't make sense on Main Street, it's time to let the free market decide what happens to it. In my opinion, and I know the word on the street is woke wind, right? Woke wind, woke solar. And by the way, I'm going to be live streaming a little later today, kind of like a, watch party. We're going to watch the state land board meeting together a little later today, and we'll be live streaming that. We can talk about it while it's going on. We need to let the technology die, stop being subsidized. And you know what? Maybe at some point renewables will make sense. I don't like that we're filling our coal mines with windmill blades that will be there until the end of time. I don't like the environmental impact of wind and solar. Solar is highly toxic when it's disposed. Wind, obviously, the environmental impact to our critters, to our landscapes, to and it never covers it, never pays for itself. And I think so. I'm not in favor. I'm in favor of seeing renewables be successful, but it needs to actually make sense for the people of Wyoming, really the environment and all of that. I think it's really, really important. It just doesn't make sense now. And I know you say, well, Joseph, environmentally wise, well, what about coal, oil, natural gas? Like, what about their environmental impacts? And you're not wrong about that. There are environmental impacts there too, as well. So I'm not in favor at this time of expansion of wind and solar until it can actually make sense. And I think that's what's really, really important when it comes to renewable energy. Now let's talk about, I think this has been really, really hot button topic in Wyoming for the last year, and that's nuclear. And I'm gonna say nuclear and new technology. I'm gonna put those together, even though I know they're technically separate. First of all, I'm very open minded to new technology. I think we need to be open minded to new technology. I don't think that we should be narrow minded. Well, Joseph, and if you look at this graph, Joseph, we've always done it this way. This is the only way to do it, and we should just keep pushing. I'm going to say for argument's sake, we should just keep pushing coal, even though that blue line is going the other direction. I think we need to be open to new technology, and I think that we need to be careful with new technology, but open minded. So let's talk a little bit about nuclear. I will tell you just off the top, bird's eye view, I'm not closed minded to nuclear energy in Wyoming. But the caveat for me is, now I say do it the right way, but what I really mean is, what does Wyoming want? What do our communities want? There was a nuclear project that was going to go up by bar none, and that project ended up going to Tennessee for a wide variety of reasons, which I won't bore you with here. But one of the biggest concerns that community brought up is, we don't want this in our backyard. Okay, that makes sense. I understand that. I wouldn't want it in my backyard either. So why can't government and corporations go, well, okay, you know what? We won't put this in your backyard. We'll build the infrastructure and we'll put it 10 miles outside of town or whatever, right? So Wyoming has plenty of room to do stuff like this. We could find a way to work together with our communities so that our communities feel safe and comfortable. And then also perhaps look at advancing nuclear technology in Wyoming. I think it's irresponsible to say anybody wants to turn Wyoming into a nuclear wasteland. That is a fear-based talking point being used by people in this state to get you to vote for them or to be on their side, or really kind of to mislead you from the truth. Because actually, if we're going to talk about facts, which we like to do in this show, statistically speaking, nuclear is actually safer than coal. I know. Oh, I said that out loud. I'm just talking statistically speaking. But it's kind of like that airplane crash, right, guys? When it's bad, it's bad. I mean, it's statistically more dangerous for you to drive your car today than it is for you to fly in an airplane. But when an airplane crashes, it's bad, right? Okay, it's kind of the same with nuclear, right? When there's a nuclear incident, it's bad. So I understand the concern there. But nobody's going to turn Wyoming into a nuclear wasteland. I think we should be cautiously open-minded while listening to the people of our great state. And it may come to that an issue like nuclear is so big to all of Wyoming that maybe we have to put nuclear to the voters and let the voters decide on whether we're going to bring more of this into our state. And that may be the best way to do it. And guess what? For me, if the voters say no, I'm fine with that. My philosophy on governing is I could have the best idea since sliced bread. But if the people of Wyoming say, Joseph, we don't want that, the conversation is over, because the will of the people is more important than my idea that might be the best idea since sliced bread, right? So I respect and would be a governor that would respect the will of the people. And I think that we should bring more of these high-level issues to the people instead of trying to legislate it to death or trying to spin it around in commissions and committees and push things through back doors and do all this stuff. I think we need to bring more of this stuff to the people, to the ballot box. Let the people decide what the future nuclear outlook looks like for Wyoming. Let the people decide if we really want all of these data centers in Wyoming and what the people would require to allow those data centers to play in our sandbox. And so that is my sort of overview on Wyoming energy and energy policy, how I would approach it. When it comes to energy boards and commissions, I would want people on those boards and commissions that put the people first. I don't want lobbyists. I don't want corporate lobbyists. I don't want non-experts who are just really bureaucrats. I would assign people to energy boards that A, obviously are experts, but B, their first priority is how does this impact the people of Wyoming? So there you go, guys. That's a policy chat on energy today. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to talk about something that's slightly relevant to this topic. I'm going to talk about windmills, ranchers, and estate taxes. What does all that have in common? Friday is Wyoming Stories. So these are going to be conversations that I've had with people across Wyoming in the last year. And you'd be surprised what's under the hood and the rationale of why maybe a rancher would want windmills. There's more to it than just the almighty dollar, folks. There's a lot more to it. And I'm going to share that with you guys because I think it's really important. So that's tomorrow's show. Monday is Wyoming, right? So on Monday on the show, we're just going to talk about everything Wyoming. We'll probably talk more about the abortion legislation, about different people running for different offices, different positions in the state. We'll probably talk about what's going on in the upcoming legislative session, the budget session. Maybe we'll start talking about some of the bills that'll be going to the budget session. Some of those I like. Some of those I'm not real fond of, and we'll talk about that. So thank you guys so much for watching. God bless you guys. Oh, you know what? Let's leave with a closing thought. Let's see what January 8th has for us today. This says that the righteous man leads a blameless life. Blessed are his children after him. So for those of you out there watching that you've got those little ones, raise them up to be good. Not just to be good, but to help their neighbor, to love their neighbor, to be kind. I think it's so important. With that, you guys, thanks so much for watching. We're going to wrap up the show. Oh, look at that. You guys can only see the graph. Let me stop sharing that screen so I come back. There we go. God bless you guys. Take care, and we'll talk to you later.
Sun comes up on a small town road, coffee in a thermos, steel-toe boots. You don't flinch when the wind blows cold. You just do what you're born to do. Calloused hands on a busted gate. Fix what's broke till it holds its weight. You don't cut corners, don't fake the shine. You see it through every single time. That's the code of the West. Stand tall, give your very best. Your word is the mark on your chest. You ride for your people, you don't forget. Some things you just can't buy. A clean heart and a clear sky, know where to draw that line. That's the code of the West. That's the way I ride. You shake a hand, that's an iron deal. Doesn't change with the way you feel. If you say you'll show, you'll be on time. Rain on the roof or a blue sky shine. You wear the name on your paycheck proud. Hold up the crew when the chips fall down. You don't brag big, you just get it done. Few words spoken, but you speak in tongues. That's the code of the West.